Welcome to Factual America, the channel where we tackle the issues shaping our nation, head-on with facts, perspective, and a little bit of grit. Today we're digging into a subject that has set social media, state legislatures, and even dinner tables ablaze. Red flag laws. Are these laws a safeguard, designed to prevent violence, or have they become a tool for silencing and disarming political opponents? Buckle up, because things aren't always what they seem, and the answers might surprise you. First off, let's define what red flag laws are for the uninitiated. Sometimes called Extreme Risk Protection Orders, ERPOs for short. These laws allow law enforcement, and sometimes even family or acquaintances, to petition a court to temporarily remove firearms from someone deemed a danger to themselves or others. The intention? To prevent tragedies before they take place. Think of it as a society's early warning system for violence. Now, at first glance, this seems almost unassailable. Who wouldn't want to stop the next school shooting or a preventable suicide? But dig a little deeper, and you'll see the potential for serious abuse. Because, here's the twist. Dangerousness isn't always defined the same way in every state, and the checks and balances on these laws vary widely. In some cases, all it takes is an accusation. No crime, no arrest, not even an underlying investigation. Just a single complaint, and your Second Amendment rights go on ice. So who gets to decide who is dangerous? In many states, it's a judge, but often during emergency hearings where only one side is represented. This means gun owners might not even be present for the first decision to confiscate their firearms. As with so many things in life, the devil is in the details. Here's where it gets nerve-wracking for anyone who cares about due process. Reports keep surfacing about red flag laws being weaponized, sometimes even as revenge between family members, ex-spouses, or yes, political opponents. Imagine, you attend a controversial rally, post something provocative online, and suddenly, surprise! A petition to confiscate your firearms appears, citing your unstable behavior. One of the most high-profile cases occurred in Colorado, where a police officer was reported by a woman who claimed he was a danger to himself and others. The officer and the woman had never met, but they were on opposite sides of a deadly force incident. The judge, in this case, denied the request, but only after the officer was forced to defend himself against the accusation. In another case, Florida man Jaron Smith was targeted by an ex-girlfriend who filed a red flag petition days after they broke up. If these cases sound isolated, think again. The real twist is that once gun confiscation is on the table, the threshold for proving you aren't dangerous is astonishingly high. In some states, you have to petition the court, hire a lawyer, and fight for weeks or months, all after your rights have already been stripped. Some proponents argue that the risks of abuse are overblown, that judges are thoughtful, that the process is robust. But statistics from states like Maryland and California tell a different story. In Maryland, over 300 red flag petitions were filed in the first 3 months after their law passed. Were all these individuals truly dangerous, or were some victims of overzealous reporting and personal vendettas? Let's not gloss over due process. Our Constitution enshrines protections for the accused, even before they're proven guilty. The right to bear arms is no less fundamental than the right to a fair trial. But red flag laws turn that on its head. Guilty until proven innocent, at least when it comes to gun ownership. Of course, defenders of these laws counter that not all gun owners are being targeted. Only those who present clear warning signs. And it's true. A tool for intervention is needed in extreme cases. But with growing cultural and political polarization in America, even what counts as a warning sign can become a matter of political interpretation. Here's an example that really brings the debate to life. In New York, a red flag petition was filed against a conservative activist after he posted fiery but constitutionally protected political speech online. No threats, no violence, just unpopular opinions. Authorities later dropped the order, But not before the activist spent weeks fighting to keep his legally owned firearms. That's a chilling precedent, no matter where you stand politically. The line between credible threat and protected speech is blurry, and as history has shown us, laws designed for one purpose can quickly be bent to serve another. Think of how national security claims throughout history have been used to stifle dissent. Could red flag laws be co-opted in much the same way? So, are these laws really about public safety? Or are they becoming an end run around the Second Amendment for those who can't or won't make their case in the legislature? Let's look at some statistics. Reports from gun owners groups and legal scholars suggest an uptick in red flag petitions in areas where contentious political debates rage hottest. No hard proof of widespread conspiracy, but a troubling pattern that should have all of us asking tough questions. Authorities assert that these laws have saved lives, citing cases where individuals threatened mass shootings and had derwarzawi onangrensuns enorisai kanre kure doizeri inoriistawe. But here's another twist. There's almost no way to prove a negative. How do you measure an event that didn't happen? And is that worth denying people a basic constitutional right based on unsubstantiated allegations? Consider, too, the impact on those wrongfully accused. Loss of a firearms license can mean loss of a job for armed security personnel, police, and even military members. The emotional toll alone can damage reputations and relationships, and in several cases, red flag accusations have appeared in divorce and custody battles as leverage against political rivals or estranged partners. You might be wondering, isn't there any way to balance actual threats against abuse of power? That's the million-dollar question. Several states are revising their laws to ensure quick hearings with both parties present, higher evidentiary standards, and penalties for false claims. But as the process evolves, so does the risk of loopholes being exploited by those who see firearms as political symbols, rather than rights. Let's not forget the media's role here. Incendiary headlines on both sides make it hard to separate signal from noise. Red flag law saves lives, or red flag law destroys innocent man's livelihood. With such polar opposite stories, who do you believe? One thing is certain. These laws are proliferating. As of 2024, 21 states plus DC have passed some form of red flag legislation. Some are bipartisan, others fiercely contested. In every case, there are calls for stronger safeguards. Because, in truth, what's at stake isn't just gun ownership, but the rules by which we as Americans can be declared unfit to exercise our rights. It's important, too, to note that this isn't just a left versus right issue. Libertarians, civil rights groups, and even some left-leaning activists have voiced concerns about due process. The ACLU in California initially opposed state-level ERPOs before pushing for procedural safeguards. That ought to tell you something. Wherever you fall on the spectrum, nobody wants to see a system where authorities punish people for what they might do. But here comes the twist you might not expect. Some conservatives, including high-profile sheriffs and Republican lawmakers, have backed red flag laws as tools against mental illness and domestic violence. For them, the key is making sure laws are tightly defined and abuse is penalized. Consensus, however fragile, is possible when people see the same facts. The real danger is when politicians use tragedies and fear to ram through sweeping laws that might one day be used against anyone, left or right. Where does that leave the rest of us? Vigilant, I hope. Because as these laws spread, they cast a long shadow, not just over gun owners, but over every American who values constitutional rights and the presumption of innocence. History teaches that powers given to the state in one generation can be abused by another. Let's add one final twist. Imagine a future where political tides shift, where your opinions become unacceptable, and neighbors are encouraged to anonymously report each other as unstable. Sound far-fetched? Ask anyone who lived under Stasi East Germany or who has seen so-called debanking of the controversial in recent years. The conditions for that kind of society start small, with laws that bypass normal protections for our safety. So, are red flag laws being used to disarm political opponents? In some cases, yes. They have been, whether by design or accident. Is that the main intent everywhere? Probably not. But the risk is there. The incentives are clear, and the potential for abuse grows as political divisions deepen. In conclusion, red flag laws started as an attempt to solve real problems. But in a country where trust in government is near historic lows, and political fights feel existential, these laws risk eroding not just the Second Amendment, but the basic trust, the shared rules that keep our republic running. Now, it's your turn. What do you think? Are red flag laws an essential tool to keep us safe? Or are we crossing a line that's too dangerous to ignore? Where's the balance between safety and liberty? Leave your comments below, tell us your story, and let us know what other controversial topics you want us to dig into here on Factual America. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a fact or a twist.